Happy New Year. We're Randy and Brandy Miller.
I'm Brandy, just in case you were confused.
Yes. So Brandy with a Y also.
That's right.
We have been married as of December 13th for 25 years.
Yes, that's correct.
And it's been a very interesting 25 years. Very difficult at times.
Yes, at times.
Um, and we also have a interesting journey through our relationship, which we thought would be a good way or something very good to share with people. And so, because of that, we decided that we would start making a video log of our journey from our 25th to our 50th marriage anniversary. That's our next goal, which is why we call this vlog from silver to gold. But we also figured we would talk about things that led up to the 20th. So, kind of a look at where we were,
Yeah.
and where we're going, and our journey along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, we met when I was 13. He's 5 months older than I am. So for 5 months of the year, he's an old man, and I'm young. And then on my birthday, he magically changes back to being young again. Because I am never old, ever.
Apparently, she's the fountain of youth.
That's right. I am the fountain of youth. I'm the fountain of all things good, baby.
And so, I guess we can talk about where we started.
Yeah, sure. I mean, um, at 13, I was a hot mess. um, Grew up in a really rough situation, and I didn't know what love was because the word love had been used to describe all kinds of things that were anything but loving and kind and gentle. So, um, somebody loving me for me was something I was totally unprepared for. In fact, I didn't have the context to recognize it for what it was. And so, um, well, the first time I met him, it was behind the band hall at junior high. I was in orchestra, and so every morning you would gather behind the band hall because the first thing you had to do was load your instruments into the lockers so you didn't have to carry them around all morning until orchestra period. And so I was hanging out with my friends, and one of them introduces me to this guy. You can, he was funny. He was cute. He was funny. He had braces at the time, and I thought braces were really cute. Don't ask me why. Just a little weird, peculiar trait of mine. But anyway, and he was really funny. But he was really funny telling jokes that were totally inappropriate. And so my habit at the time was to smack guys who told inappropriate jokes or behaved inappropriately around me to let them know that their behavior was inappropriate. And I smacked this guy, even though I just met him, which, if you think about it, is kind of crazy. Um, and he ended up losing his balance and falling off the band platform. You can tell him the story. I left a really big impression on you that day.
Well, she gave me 7 scars on this hand. Um, so that a lasting impression can be said there. I had seen her before. She had caught my eye because she was the only girl in junior high that would wear heels, which in my book is a big thing. So, needless to say, it definitely caught my attention.
Yeah, I got made fun of a lot for dressing in skirts and dresses and heels because it was a t-shirt and jeans attire grade level group, and anybody who stuck out was basically setting themselves up to be a target.
So, yeah, that was our meeting. the first time we actually physically met. So uh, it goes to show you what kind of a lasting impression you can make on somebody
Yes.
without knowing it.
Yeah, without knowing it. And the truth is that if I had blended in with the crowd, if I had been just like everybody else, I never would have caught his attention.
No, it's true.
I would have been just like every other girl out there. But the fact that I was willing to be different already said something to him about who I was and what it would be like to be around with me.
And so that was then, and we'll go through more of those as we go through more blogs. But the backgrounds that we both came from, I came from a very, very so lightly Christian family we might as well have been atheists. So that was my faith, and hers was a little bit different at the time period.
Mine was very different. Yeah. Well, kind of. I say that. We were Christian. We were Catholic. During Sunday at Mass. But pretty much, once we got out of Mass, you couldn't have found enough evidence in our home of our Christian faith to have convicted us. There were no pictures of Jesus or Mary or the saints. There were no rosaries, or I don't even know that we had a Bible in the house. We had all kinds of other books. In fact, Catholics have 7 sacraments. In our house, reading was the 8th sacrament. And it was the most important. We got books for birthdays and Christmas, and they were the treasures that we had. I was an absolute bookworm. I preferred books over people because you could choose whether a book could hurt you or not, but you can't choose whether a person would hurt you or not.
Yeah, but I mean, books became really your life. I mean, even up to today. I mean, like myself, I was into computers and the like, and it's still really kind of my my world. I mean, I'm a automation specialist and an application web developer, and basically computer tech, general systems administration, and all that stuff, which started in my youth, which also what you just described there in your youth kind of dominates what you do today as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely. One of the things I do is help people write books, but mostly I'm a communication specialist. I basically help people communicate their big visions and ideas to the people that they want to reach. And whether that's through books or copywriting or whatever else, it's all about helping somebody take an idea and make it understandable by people who have never encountered that idea.
So, I mean, that's what we do currently. Not in the greatest shape financially, not really where we want to be, but we work for ourselves. We set our own hours. We do have a roof over our head, and we are able to feed ourselves, so that's significantly better than the alternative.
Yeah, it definitely is. And yeah, I mean, when you're an entrepreneur, nobody prepares you really for the up and downs. It's kind of like the beginning stages of your business, or a lot like a roller coaster ride. Your highs are really, really high, and your lows are really, really low, and you don't know. Sometimes you're hurtling into those lows with absolutely no brakes, and you don't know when it's going to stop or how low it's going to go. And then you hit these unexpected highs, and it rockets forward, and so it's been a lot like that, but we're kind of reaching this point, I feel like a tipping point in things where they're about to shift gears. But we'll see where 2020 takes us.
And one of the things about working, both of us being entrepreneurs, we both kind of do our own things, but we also work together. That affects our relationship as well. There are a lot of times where we have trouble working together, and it kind of spills over into our relationship as well. But it's kind of like a microcosm of the relationship, in that being business partners is very similar to being a life partner. Um, the difference is we've gotten good at being, well, gotten better over the years. I won't necessarily say we're good at. There are people who would say that we are, since we have been married for 25 years. We've gotten better at being life partners over the years. And however, a lot of times I don't know, we just don't seem to apply some of those skills that we learned being life partners in our business partners situations.
Well, I think it really comes down to when you work together as entrepreneurs, there has to be a measure of accountability and communication. And some of the areas we've learned to communicate really well in our relationship about certain parts of our lives. But also, there's parts of our lives that are compartmentalized away from the other because the other person isn't interested. So you kind of hang that out. But when you're working together on a business project, it has to be a constant flow of communication and accountability. And neither one of us are very good necessarily with the accountability part. Being questioned about what you're doing or how you're doing it can cause a little bit of defensiveness, and so that friction comes to play. It's like, well, don't you believe me? Don't you trust me? And the answer to the question is nobody trusts anybody 100%. And, well, at least in my experience, you need that accountability with each other. Even if you do trust one another 100%, nobody's perfect. And everybody gets things wrong. And having somebody come behind you and examine it with you may help you find mistakes you didn't even know you were making. One of the things that we've taken on is I have this goal of creating this game called Word Quest Online, where it basically helps people learn how to write and while having fun. And I have this big overarching vision. And when I brought it to him, he's my programmer, so when I brought it to him, he's like, the big vision is great. It's fantastic. But we need to break that big vision down into something small that I can start with. And that was like, oh, it's like, I don't know, it was really frustrating to have worked on this idea and then told, can't do this. We need to do something different. We need to shift. And then we got to talking later after I shifted gears, stripped it down, figured out a way to start small like he'd asked for, presented it to him, and we still had issues to work out. We still had things we needed to hash out in terms of how the gameplay was going to work. But in the end, when we did get past that communication block and we did start managing to communicate with each other, we were able to play with each other. That sounds so wrong.
You said it that way.
We were able to play off of each other's ideas and come up with a third idea that was even better than either of our original two ideas.
Sure.
So, yes, there are challenges in working together. There are challenges in marriage. There are always challenges, and you just have to decide that the relationship is more important than the ego. And that's really what it boils down to.
But it also means that a lot of that process was very painful. Don't get we're past all of those painful parts, but it was some kicking and screaming on both of our parts, so to speak. So that gives you kind of an overview of where we're at right now, which we'll talk more, and we'll let you in on things that are going on in our lives as we move forward as well. But as this is also a vlog about our journey forward, I guess would be a good part to talk about our dreams that we're trying to get to. You kind of have to have goals in life. Some goals are small, like for me to right now, one of mine is to make enough money for us to go have a nice steak dinner. Haven't had one in a while. Kind of a small goal. But we also have and plenty of those. We also have larger goals. We desire to move right now. We're wanting to move from where we're at down in Dallas back up to where we met back in Denton, Texas, for those of you who are not aware of it. In the United States, if you happen to not be from the U.S. and don't know where Texas is, although you would be, I'm not sure how you got YouTube under a rock, wherever it is you live, but most people know that. And yes, we are native. Well, I'm a native Texan. She was not born here, but she was almost born, basically born here.
Yeah, I was born in Little Rock, Arkansas, which is about 4 hours drive to the east. But when I was 9 months old, my parents both wanted to go to North Texas State University, which is in Denton, now named UNT. And so they picked up, and at 9 months of age, I moved to Denton, Texas, and I lived there for the first 27 years of my life, pretty much.
So, yes, we're from Texas. No, we don't have accents. I know that is shocking to some of you. We have American accents, but not Texas accents, although it's quite common for this area, the metropolitan Texas area, to dispel a lot of illusions and myths is not necessarily uncultured Southern people. But
now, if I do get upset, I will have a Southern accent slightly.
If we're upset or tired, it does come out a little bit. But so, like I said, one of our goals is to move for family reasons. We don't currently own an automobile. That's also so. Those are kind of our bigger short-term goals. But we have a more long-term goals. Is that her big dream is to open a retreat center for writers and also for spiritual type retreats, religious type retreats, but not normal retreat center, you would say. Our idea is to put together 20 to 30 tiny houses.
Actually, it's 60 tiny houses. And there's a reason for that number. Because that's the number of tiny houses I need in order to successfully run a seasons of my 40-day writer reality TV show.
Which would be a goal
Right.
that's even farther down the road.
Yeah.
So, but I was talking more of a interim.
Well, yeah, I mean,
goal.
but the grand vision of the Writers Retreat Center is to have 60 tiny houses, each with their own little personality, and to kind of provide writers with inspiration. So you would have a row of like fantasy style houses, and a row of sci-fi, and a row of horror, and a row of historical, and basically each genre would have its own little section and niche. And so the writer that would come could pick out the one that fit their book that they were trying to write best. And then they could come to the center of the retreat center for classes or mentoring or just coaching through whatever obstacles and problems they ran into. And then when the TV show actually was ready and kicked off, then what would happen is that the 40 writers that were chosen out of all the people who compete to be on the show would, over 40 days, work on their novel, finish it, polish it, pitch it to publishers at the end of the show, and basically Shark Tank style, where they would compete. The publishers would compete to get the rights to publish these works. The benefit for the publishers and the writers is that this means that they've been building their audience all along, and they're following for that particular book. And so by the time it's to the point where they're pitching, both the publisher is assured that there's an audience waiting to buy the minute that they snatch this manuscript up. And the author is prepared to meet the publisher not as this, I need you and I don't really know that I have anything to contribute, but as a business person. So they know how to work things, they know how to work a business, they know how to market themselves, they know how to develop their product, they've targeted their audience, they've done all the homework. So the publisher gets a really strong sales potential, and the writer gets a partner in working with the publisher. And so it's a win-win for everybody. And of course, the audience gets to participate in voting because every 4 days, 4 of the authors out of the 40 go home until you've gotten down to the point where there are just 8 left. And that's the idea for the TV show. So, of course, you would need judges and you would need camera people and all kinds of stuff. So that's why there's 60 of them, even though there's only 40 writers.
Right, which again, like that's the long, far, far down the road goal. Probably, I mean, not saying that we will be after our 50th anniversary, but there's a possibility. But
I hope it's not that long away.
and of course, one of our big goals actually is to get to that 50th anniversary. So
well, yeah, because not everybody makes it.
No. Obviously, we've gotten over the initial hurdles that the people who break up, after a year, and then kind of the next hurdle is kind of like 3 or 4 years down the road. Then you see a lot of people in about 7 or 8. Kind of gets okay after that, but there also comes a time, even farther down the road, we're going to have, menopause and midlife crisis and all that stuff that we get to fight through together.
We've already gone through the empty nester.
Yes.
That's a huge breakup point usually because most people don't actually take the time to work on their relationship while the kids are growing up. So mom tends to focus on the kids and dad tends to focus on the career, and then suddenly the kids are gone. Mom doesn't know how to adjust to her new life. Dad's not been really connected to her. And so now you're meeting a stranger over breakfast. And both of you have to decide whether it's worth the time and effort it's going to take to build a bridge to get back together and connect to one another, or whether you're going to part ways. And one of the things that nobody prepared us for when our son left home was the grief that comes when you lose a child to adulthood. And it sounds funny to say that because he's not dead, right? He can come back home at any time. But there is a grieving process. He's no longer there with you all the time like he used to be. You go shopping and you see his favorite foods and suddenly you're reminded that he's not going to be home when you get there. And so this part, it's like losing a limb that you didn't even know you had until it was gone. And so when you're grieving, there are 2 ways to face grief, right? You can face it together head on and communicate about how you feel and support one another in your grief, or you can tear each other to pieces, blaming one another for what didn't go right, or shutting each other out of your feelings and emotions. And fortunately, we had a strong enough connection that we were able to come together and survive the grieving process with one another rather than isolating each other or shutting each other out or tearing each other apart.
Right. And that mainly comes from some of the hurdles that we overcame in our relationship getting to that 25th anniversary, which definitely ones that'll warrant their own episodes to talk fully about them. But today was more or less just kind of an overview, kind of a new beginning. So figured that we would introduce ourselves to those of you who don't know us, and to some of you who do, some information you may not have known. So we'll get to know us a little better, and we plan on answering any questions we get. So please comment below if you have any questions for us on this or any future video. And also, we welcome your comments and the sharing of your story. Perhaps we may talk about something that you've also gone through, or maybe something that's coming up that you're worried about going through, and want to discuss it. Or maybe there's something that we've discussed that you might have a suggestion for a better way to have dealt with. Or as we talk about things that we are facing, we value everyone's comments. So don't be shy. Go ahead and comment as well. And of course, we wouldn't be a YouTube vlog if we didn't ask you to hit the subscribe button and click on the bell to get notifications and give us a like as well. And we will talk to you again soon as we continue our journey, from silver to gold.
Absolutely.